Thank you. First, I would like to thank the organization for the opportunity to talk at the Charleston conference about monitoring agreements with open access elements and the importance of metadata. My name is Saskia Wouterse. I'm a digital scholarship librarian with expertise on open access and work at the Center for Digital Scholarship at Leiden University Libraries. I'm presenting the results on behalf of the Open Access Expert Group of the Knowledge Exchange, especially Mafalda Marquez, research analyst from JISC, and Arja Tulini, head licensing of the National Library of Finland. Oh,
there we go. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. The Knowledge Exchange partners are six national organizations within Europe, working together to support the use and the development of the ESAC infrastructure for higher education and research. The Knowledge Exchange consists of the German Research Foundation, the Center for Science in Finland, JISC in the United Kingdom, Centre National de la Recherche Scientifique in France, SURF in the Netherlands, and DIKE, the Danish E-Infrastructure Corporation. The Knowledge Exchange works with expert groups on open access and open scholarship and addresses emerging developments that impact open scholarship. A subgroup of the Knowledge Exchange Open Access Expert Group is working on monitoring and undertook research on standards and best practices to monitor compliance with open access policies in 2015, and monitoring publications and costs for open access publications in 2016. And they have written a report, Consensus on Monitoring Open Access Publications, Cost and Data. The previous work has led to this new study that we are now presenting, assessment of major publishers' agreements that have open access elements across the 6 Knowledge Exchange countries. First, we would like to look at why we have or even need agreements with publishers with open access elements. Firstly, researchers are increasingly mandated to publish their scientific articles open access, for example in Plan S. Plan S is mainly a European thing, but also the Bill Gates Foundation supports it. To facilitate researchers, libraries have added publish elements to their read agreements with publishers. That can be subscription agreements with article processing charge discounts, subscription agreements with certain number of free open access articles, read and publish agreements, offsetting agreements, and transformative agreements, to name some. For example, the Dutch Library Consortium has 18 national agreements with open access elements. About 20 till 30% of the peer-reviewed articles in the Netherlands, and that is about 10,000 articles per year, are now published open access under the agreements. We have a national website, openaccess.nl, with information on the agreements. On this website, we also monitor per publisher the number of articles published open access under the agreements. At Leiden University only, we have about 1,000 articles per year that are published open access under the agreements. By adding open access elements to the read agreements, open access publishing will be easier for researchers, and with that, will make it easier for researchers to be open access compliant with all kinds of open access policies, from their funder, their institution, or the government. For libraries, it has become of great importance to monitor the open access elements in these agreements, especially in relation to the uptake. So, do authors make use of the option to publish open access without any cost for the author? We have seen deals with 100% uptake, but also with only 20%. You can only discover that by monitoring the use of the agreement. The costs, is it affordable? What is the expected cost per article? What is the value for money? So what is the relation between the use, the downloads, the number of open access publications under the agreement, and the real open access cost? Compliance with funders. Does the agreement fulfill the funder requirements? Think of required licenses or a roadmap to flip to full open access. With an increasing number of agreements that include open access elements, it's becoming important for consortia and academic institutions to include the delivery of article level metadata in agreements with publishers. But why is open access article metadata important? What do we want to know? We want to monitor how many articles are being published open access, but also which articles have not been published open access under each agreement. How many have already been published open access is particularly relevant in the cases where there is a cap on the maximum number of articles that can be published open access. How much is being spent on open access publishing, and assess the value of the agreements. For example, whether agreements with open access elements are delivering this value for money. It's also important to monitor which Creative Commons licenses have been used, to know how wide reuse is granted, and to improve the workflow and enable assessment of this improvement, and to see if the uptake is getting better. And last but not least, the entities that pay the article processing charges, the APCs, have the right to access the information about the articles they fund. Counter is used to monitor the use of content, but not for monitoring open access results from publishers' agreements, although they might be interested to look into developing and maintaining such new standards and reports. There are two recommendations, however, from the Efficiency and Standards for Article Charts, ESAC, and the Knowledge Exchange. They're both from 2017. They are about what metadata to include in the open access monitoring. But these are not the official standards for monitoring open access. Knowledge Exchange has identified in their report the need for common standards, identifiers and definitions, and data requirements, and issued recommendations for current research information systems for publishers and libraries. It's also relevant to see that Coalition S, who is planning for a full transition to open access by 2021, includes in its guidelines that transformative agreements should meet the ESAC guidelines, and also that articles should include high-quality article-level metadata. The purpose of assessing agreements with open access elements in terms of what article-level metadata consortia request from publishers and what metadata publishers provide relates to the question, what have publishers and libraries done with the recommendations by the Knowledge Exchange and ESAC? Are libraries demanding the recommended metadata? And are publishers providing the recommended metadata? To see if that is the case, we classified agreements from 6 Knowledge Exchange countries by type, be it subscription agreements or agreements with open access elements. We considered agreements with open access elements to be those that include distinct open access models, such as a subscription agreement with APC discounts, subscription agreements with a certain number of free open access articles, read and publish agreements, offsetting agreements, and transformative agreements. Based on the Knowledge Exchange and the ESAC recommendations, the Open Access Expert Group of the Knowledge Exchange has created an article-level metadata checklist with 31 criteria. In total, 27 consortia contract with open access elements of 12 major publishers and from 5 different countries were analyzed to see whether consortia requested open access metadata in the contract or annexes. This seemed not always be the case. The study focused on the analysis of agreement that Knowledge Exchange countries had with the American Chemical Society, Cambridge University Press, EDP Sciences, Elsevier, Oxford University Press, the Royal Society of Chemistry, Sage Publishing, Springer Nature, Taylor & Francis, and Wiley. Only agreements with open access elements were considered valid for the analysis. For example, agreements with the open access discounts and the offsetting agreements and the read and publish agreements. The agreements analyzed dated from between 2016 and 2019. Agreements with open access elements were analyzed against an article-level metadata checklist, which was developed and based on the Knowledge Exchange and the ESAC recommendations. So the article-level metadata checklist consists of general metadata, in blue on the left, with, for example, article types, Identifiers on the top, on the right. For example, DOIs, ORGIDs, thumb drive IDs. Dates, for example, article acceptance date. Information about article processing charges, also called APC data. Think of APC costs and the currency that has been used. Licenses, so about the licenses of the articles. Creative Commons, the CC BY non-commercial, non-derivative, etc. Information on funding, for example, the funder name, funding acknowledgement in the article. And names, so author names, institution names, journal title, and article title. 2 steps were followed to assess article-level metadata requested by consortia and academic institutions in publishers' agreements with open access elements. The first step was to assess what article-level metadata consortia and academic institutions request from publishers. And this was done by first checking all agreements and other relevant documentation and using the checklist to observe if metadata was requested by consortia and academic institutions. The second step was to assess what metadata publishers provide to consortia and academic institutions, and this was done by using the checklist to observe what metadata, if any, publishers provided to consortia and institutions. We can see here on this sheet that the first part of the analysis, so assessing which consortia agreements require publishers to provide which article level metadata, showed that the criteria most commonly requested by the consortia and academic institutions to publishers were the DOI, that's the first one in a row, the institution name, the article title, the corresponding author name, and these are the most important. And please note the level of the bars and the difference with the next slide. So in the second part of this analysis, and on this slide, we involved assessing which article level metadata was provided by the publishers. And it showed that the fewer article level metadata was provided by publishers than requested by the consortia. So the bars in this graph are much lower than in the previous slide. The criteria for which publishers most commonly provided metadata were also the DOIs, institution names, but also article online date and date of publication, corresponding author email, article license, journal title, and journal ISSN. So here we see a summary of the differences of what was requested by the consortia and delivered by the publishers. In orange, we see the open access metadata requested by consortia, and in blue, the metadata provided by the publishers. In 23 contracts, a DOI was requested, but only 16 times publishers did provide it. The same sort of difference applies to institution's name, article title, the name of the corresponding author, ISSN, journal title, and the license. These were all requested, but not often provided by the publisher. On the other hand, we also see metadata provided by publishers that was not requested by the consortia or institutions. Think of the grant numbers, the article approval date, if the article is open access, which is a quite relevant question, of course, and the article type, to name some. So our main conclusions are that none of the consortia agreements requested all of the article level metadata recommended by the Knowledge Exchange and ESAC, nor did publishers provide all the metadata. Consortia and academic institutions did, however, ask for more metadata than publishers provided. The majority of publishers provided less article metadata than what consortia requested, and the exceptions were 3 publishers that had provided more metadata than that was requested in the contracts or in other relevant documentation. Publishers did not deliver exactly the same metadata across countries. That was also very interesting to see. This may be due to a lack of consistency in their practices. This may also be a result of consortia being more aware of the need to collect metadata than publishers, and publishers not having all the processes and workflows in place to provide such metadata. Publishers may not be aware of the need to provide metadata, nor have systems to deliver it automatically or systematically. Funding was the area for which publishers provided fewer article-level metadata in general. The results show us how far consortia and publishers are from being aligned with the knowledge exchange and the ESAC recommendations. This research on open access monitoring made consortia aware of the importance of requiring article-level metadata in the contracts with publishers and implementing mechanisms to monitor publishers' compliance with the terms of the agreements. The study can be used to benchmark how consortia and publishers were performing until early 2019 in the pre-Plan S scenario. Based on our checklist, so the 31 criteria, we have developed a template for publishers to use it as a reporting tool and for consortia and academic institutions to be aware of what metadata they need to request from publishers. The template can be used to track open access publication numbers, to monitor costs, to monitor which institutions are publishing most or least articles, which journals are most or least popular, how many article fees are paid by funders, and so on. The template has been shared on Zenodo for publishers to provide the article level metadata to the consortia in a more standardized way. And now we are working on a second version of the template, in which, for example, repair links have been added to the template to provide authors an easy one-click repair option for a missed open access article. Here you see a screenshot of the template for article level metadata we have created. For libraries to see what metadata they should ask, and for publishers to see what they could provide. The template can be freely downloaded from Zenodo. So we conclude that open access monitoring is still under development and that libraries should take the lead to be able to improve the success of agreements with open access elements. Be sure to put open access metadata requirements in the open access contracts. Check the reports of the publishers to see if publishers fulfill what has been agreed on. Monitor the value for money and the uptake of the agreements. Evaluate, modify, update your requirements for open access metadata requirements if necessary, and stay up to date. Follow the updates from the knowledge exchange and the ESAC, and hopefully counter. More information can be found in our article published in Insights. This gives more detail about the research we have done. And I would like to conclude with thanking Mafalda Marquez, Annemette Morthorst, and Frank Manista for giving permission to update the presentation. I would like to thank you for your attention, and I would be happy to answer your questions.
So we have just one so far, which is just asking you if you can make sure people really want to see the slides afterwards. So they're hoping that you can upload the files.
Let me try. I've tried it before and then it
didn't work. Okay, we're gonna try then.
Okay, I will.
And then someone asked, and if you want to paste this into the Zoom chat and I can get it into Pathable, someone asked if you can share the link to the metadata recommendations in the chat.
Yeah, that's good. So what was the question?
If you can share the link to your metadata recommendations.
Is that the article or the template?
I'll ask. Template.
The template.
Yep. Oh, someone actually already posted them.
Okay.
Someone found them. Great. Thank you, Pamela and Neil. Well, we definitely we've got 10 minutes left, so we definitely have time for questions. If anyone, please feel free to type them into the chat. Okay. One person, Esther, or I hope I can pronounce it. Do consortia make this metadata available publicly? Was the question.
No, that's not. No. It is be shared within the consortium. So in the Netherlands, for example, we have a central server where all the data is gathered. But what we see is that all publishers deliver the metadata still on a different way. So it's very problematic if you want to collect the data and put it together in one file, for example. But it's not shared at the moment publicly.
So did that answer your question of why not? Okay, great. And we've got Georgie asking, in your opinion, is there a good way to incentivize publishers to provide this data to consortia?
The motivation for publishers, yeah, it's also interesting, I guess, for the publishers. But yeah, it's especially we pay for the open access articles and we pay for the subscription, so we have to know as consumers what the value for money is of these agreements. So it's also a part of the services publishers should deliver for the customers. And it could also be interesting, of course, for the publishers to see who is making use of their deals, which disciplines, which journals, the APC cost, all that kind of information. What kind of licenses author prefer. So there can be a lot of information for the publishers also. And coming back to the previous question, what is also a problem with sharing the information is the privacy or the privacy regulations. So a lot of the reports have email addresses of the authors. So you should clean up the data before you can share it publicly.
Thanks. We've got a question from Joelle. She was wondering if there's if those reports or anything like that, if have any information at the publisher level. For example, specifically, are there publishers that are doing well versus publishers that really provide few metadata?
Yeah. We started with Springer, and yeah, they have really very high quality and extended metadata reporting. But we also have, and I do not know which publisher it is, but there are still publishers which not deliver the DOI, and that's very problematic because you are not sure which article you're talking about. So you really need an identifier to know which article it is and what's related to it. So sometimes you get a reporting with only a title of an article, and you know which publisher it is, and then you have to find out yourself. So that's not what you want.
We have another question from Pamela. Have you checked the accuracy of the vendor provided metadata? I realize this adds another level of monitoring.
Yeah, and that's also really a problem because it's not often, but it is too often that sometimes we get a report and there's stated that the article is open access. And when you go to the website of the publisher, you cannot access it. It's closed. And there's also not a license which is in your reporting. So you have to contact the publisher and ask what's wrong. Another example is that, especially in a consortium, it's very important who has paid for the article, or we should pay for the article. So is it the University of Leiden, where I'm working, or the University of Amsterdam? And sometimes I see that an article has been referred to or pointed to the wrong organization. So it's not 100%, but we are still working on it, and yeah, things can be improved. But there are more exceptions than that. It's normal. So normally the quality is good.
So we've got Lisa is asking, if libraries demand reading statistics, are we encouraging surveillance or user tracking of readers contrary to our elsewhere stated priorities of reader privacy and no tracking of reading?
So
basically, if we're like tracking what users are reading, right?
Mm-hmm.
In terms of open access, how does that work with privacy concerns?
But what's the relation to the reporting of open access articles? Oh, no, it's a general question. It can also be, of course, yeah.
I'm not. I'm not sure. Lisa, do you want to kind of clarify what you're going for there? Okay. Well, I'm going to move on to another question and then get back to that one. You mentioned the counter isn't currently being used widely for the reporting of OA usage, but there are metrics that publishers are providing for usage.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Or are there metrics that publishers are providing for usage of OA, or do you have to depend on discovery statistics pointing to linked open access databases?
Yeah, it's both.
Okay.
So so that's a good one, because it's a good question, because that's also how we check the reportings. So if you have the DOIs, you can use, for example, a paywall easily to see if it matches. So if the one has a CC BY and the other has a CC BY non-commercial, then you know something is wrong. And that's the same for when it's closed, for example. And that can also help, because what we also ask is if publishers add to the file that it is open access. And paywall also matches the article metadata in the file. So when a paywall cannot see as a tool that it's open access, and we have it in the report as open access, there's also a problem, because you want that everyone can see, also the computers, that a file is open access. So that can also be an action.
So Lisa clarified, I think she's basically, she's wondering if libraries want to know how much the articles they fund are read. That seems to encourage reader tracking. Are you asking for reader statistics? She's heard that many libraries say that they fund an article, they want to know how much that article is read.
Yeah, it's interesting. I never heard someone in the Netherlands about this. What we do is that we look at our repositories, because all the open access articles are uploaded in repositories and institutional repositories. And there we look at the download statistics, but not in general. And that's, of course, a bit of a problem with open access articles. If they have a CC BY, they can be everywhere. People can put them on a website, on a personal page, on their institutional page. They can be in a repository, they can be with a publisher. So that is something I think as a community we should work on, that we have all downloads from all kind of places together at one spot, because when it's spread and disseminated over the whole world and over all kind of websites, it's very difficult to know how much an article has been downloaded. What we do is that we look at old metrics. So how much has been tweeted on, how popular is it, how much is it cited. So download is more difficult than all the other information.
And we've got, I think, time for one more question. It's 1:58 Eastern here, so 2 more minutes. John Edwards asks, from your survey, I am not surprised that funder information was one of the least provided details. What industry standard for recording or gathering this information do you see as the most effective way to address this dearth of information?
Yeah, so we have these fund IDs and fund ref IDs. That should be used, and it would be, of course, very handy if authors would use this kind of information in their articles. But as long as that not is the case, and they only mention the name of a funder, yeah, it's difficult to provide it. That's true. So what's already mentioned a lot during this conference is yeah, we need standards and identifiers to make it more easy for all parties, for all stakeholders.
Awesome. Well, we are pretty much at time. So we are at 2 right now. So thanks for coming, and Saskia, I'll let you close it out.
Yeah, no, thank you all for your very interesting questions, and I hope we can continue the discussion by email or no, what way or another. And I will provide the presentation to Leah, and then she will upload it to the system. Okay. Enjoy your weekend. And thank
Thanks,
you all
everyone.
for your questions. Bye-bye.